The text message lit up my phone screen like a warning flare in the quiet of my kitchen. "Ma'am, call me back immediately." It was from Mr. Hargrove, my accountant of over 20 years, the man who'd seen me through tax seasons and estate planning with the steady patience of an old oak tree. My hand trembled just a little as I set down my coffee mug, the steam curling up like unspoken fears. Why the urgency? My mind raced to the worst. Had I missed a payment? Was there fraud on my accounts? But nothing prepared me for what he was about to reveal about my own son. I dialed his number with fingers that felt too heavy, the ringtone echoing in my ear like a distant alarm. "Mrs. Ellis," he answered on the first ring, his voice low and grave, the kind that carries bad news without fanfare. "Thank you for calling back so quickly. I didn't know how else to reach you. It's about Daniel." My heart skipped. Daniel, my only son, the boy I'd raised through scraped knees and late-night worries. Now a man in his 30s with a family of his own. What could my accountant possibly know about him that I didn't? "He's been in touch with me," Mr. Hargrove continued, hesitating as if the words pained him. "About your estate. He's planning something, ma'am. Something you need to know before it's too late." The air in the kitchen seemed to thicken, the faint scent of cinnamon from the morning's oatmeal lingering like a false comfort. I sank into the wooden chair at the table, its familiar creak grounding me as shock rippled through my chest. Daniel, my Daniel, with his easy smile and promises to always look out for me. It felt like a crack forming in the foundation of everything I held dear. But as Mr. Hargrove spoke, piecing together the fragments of a secret plan that involved my savings, my home, and a future I'd built brick by brick, I realized this wasn't just a financial matter. It was a betrayal that cut to the bone, forcing me to question if I truly knew the child I'd loved unconditionally. That moment replayed in my mind for days, a loop of confusion and hurt. But to understand how deep this wound went, I suppose I need to go back to the life we had before the shadows crept in. It was a simple one, rooted in the rhythms of a small town where everyone knew your name and your story. I'd been widowed young, after my husband Tom passed from a sudden heart attack when Daniel was just 12. Tom had left us the house, a cozy two-story on Maple Street with a wraparound porch where we'd sip iced tea on summer evenings and a modest nest egg from his insurance job. I'd taken over managing our finances myself, with Mr. Hargrove's help, stretching every dollar to give Daniel the stability he needed. Those early years after Tom's death were a blur of quiet determination. I'd wake before dawn, the house still wrapped in silence, and prepare breakfasts, scrambled eggs with a dash of cheese, the way Daniel liked them, the sizzle in the pan, a small act of normalcy. He'd shuffle down the stairs in his pajamas, his hair tousled, rubbing sleep from his eyes with that boyish grin that reminded me so much of his father. "Morning, Mom," he'd mumble, hugging me from behind as I stood at the stove. Those hugs were my anchor, warm and unassuming, a reminder that we were in this together. As Daniel grew, our bond deepened into something I cherished like a well-worn quilt. He excelled in school, played baseball on weekends where I'd cheer from the bleachers, the crack of the bat mingling with the cheers of other parents. Summers were spent in the backyard, him helping me tend the garden, pulling weeds with dirt-streaked hands, the earthy smell of soil grounding us both. "You're my rock, Mom," he'd say after a long day, and I'd smile, feeling the weight of responsibility lighten just a bit. I worked as a school secretary to make ends meet, typing memos and answering calls, the click-clack of the keyboard a steady backdrop to my thoughts of building a future for him. When Daniel went off to college on a partial scholarship, I felt a pang of emptiness, but pride swelled in its place. He'd call every Sunday, his voice crackling over the line with stories of dorm life and new friends. "I miss your cooking, Mom," he'd laugh, and I'd send care packages, homemade cookies wrapped in foil, their buttery aroma seeping through the box before I sealed it. After graduation, he landed a job in sales at a local firm. Met Sarah, kind-hearted teacher with a laugh like wind chimes, and they married in our backyard under a canopy of string lights. I walked him down the aisle myself, my arm linked in his, the soft rustle of my dress against the grass as tears pricked my eyes. "I'm so happy for you, son," I whispered, and he squeezed my hand, his eyes shining. Life settled into a comfortable pattern after that. Daniel and Sarah bought a house a few blocks away, and soon came the grandchildren, little Emma with her curls, and Tommy with his endless energy. Weekends were family dinners at my place, pot roast simmering in the oven, the savory scent filling the air as laughter echoed around the table. Daniel would carve the meat with precise strokes, just like Tom used to, and we'd share stories: Emma's first steps, Tommy's mischief at preschool. "You're the heart of this family, Mom," Daniel would say, raising a glass in a toast, his gaze warm and steady. But even in those golden moments, there were threads of change I didn't fully see. Daniel started handling more of my finances after I retired 2 years ago at 6. Let me take care of the bills, Mom, he'd offered one evening. Sitting at my kitchen table with his laptop open, the screen's glow casting shadows on his face. You've done enough. I trusted him implicitly, why wouldn't I? He was my son, the one who'd stood by me through thick and thin. I'd hand over statements, watch as he nodded thoughtfully, his fingers tapping away. The house felt secure, the accounts balanced, and I could focus on simpler joys, knitting blankets for the grandkids, the soft yarn slipping through my fingers, or reading in the sunroom with the faint hum of bees outside the window. Yet, looking back, there were whispers of unease. Daniel's visits grew a tad shorter, his hugs a fraction quicker. Work's busy, he'd say with a shrug, avoiding my eyes just a moment too long. Sarah seemed quieter too, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes during dinners. I'd chalk it up to life stresses raising kids, paying mortgages, but then came the odd requests. Mom, can I borrow your login for the bank app? Just to check something. I'd oblige, without question. The trust between us is as natural as breathing. Little did I know, those small concessions were paving the way for something far more calculated. The first real clue came on a crisp autumn afternoon. About a month before that fateful text from Mr. Hargrove, I was in the living room, dusting the mantel where family photos stood like sentinels. Tom's wedding picture, Daniel's graduation, the grandkids' school portraits. The phone rang, and it was Daniel. His voice rushed, a hint of strain threading through it like a pulled seam. Hey Mom, quick question, have you thought more about updating your will? You know, just to make sure everything's set for Emma and Tommy? I paused, cloth in hand, the faint scent of lemon polish hanging in the air. It wasn't the first time he'd brought it up, but something in his tone felt off-urgent, almost insistent. Daniel, honey, we talked about this. The estate is straightforward. The house to you, savings split between you and the kids' trusts. Why the rush? He laughed, but it sounded forced, a hollow echo. No rush, just being proactive. You never know, right? We chatted a bit more, about the weather and the kids' upcoming recital. But after hanging up, an unease settled in my chest, like a stone in still water. I tried to shake it off, busying myself with folding laundry, the warm fabric soft against my skin. But that night, as I lay in bed, listening to the clock's steady tick, doubts whispered in the dark. Why the sudden interest in my will? Daniel had always been responsible, but this felt different, calculated, perhaps. A few days later, I found myself at the grocery store, pushing my cart slowly down the cereal aisle, the fluorescent lights humming overhead like distant bees. My phone buzzed in my purse. I fished it out, expecting Sarah to ask if I needed anything for the kids. Instead, it was a bank alert. Large transfer initiated, $18,400, confirm. My stomach dropped so fast, I had to grip the cart handle to steady myself. $18,000. I hadn't authorized any transfer. My thumb hovered over the screen, heart thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. I hit decline and immediately called Daniel. He answered on the third ring, sounding breezy. Hey Mom, what's up? Daniel, did you just try to move money out of my savings? My voice came out quieter than I intended, almost a whisper among the clatter of other shoppers. A pause, then a light laugh. Oh, that, yeah, sorry, I meant to talk to you. Sarah and I are looking at a bigger house, better schools. You know, I figured I'd shift some funds temporarily, pay you back next month when my commission comes in. No big deal. No big deal. The words echoed in my ears as I stood frozen beside boxes of cornflakes. You didn't ask me, Daniel. I know. I was going to surprise you, show you the new place first. Look, I'll reverse it right now. Don't worry. His tone was smooth, the same one he'd used as a teenager when he'd borrowed the car without permission. I wanted to believe him. Mothers want to believe their children. That night I barely slept. The house creaked around me like it was whispering secrets. I kept replaying his voice, that tiny edge beneath the charm. The next morning, I called Mr. Hargrove myself, just to check balances. I said, I didn't want to sound paranoid. He was gentle, as always. Everything looks normal on my end, Mrs. Ellis. But if you're concerned, maybe come in next week and we'll go over the accounts together. I should have gone that day, instead, I waited. I told myself I was overreacting. Daniel came by on Sunday with the kids, all smiles and sticky fingers from ice cream. He hugged me tight, longer than usual, and whispered, everything's fine, Mom. I reversed the transfer. See? He showed me his phonies, the money was back. Relief washed over me like warm water. I kissed Emma's curls. Let Tommy climb into my lap. And pushed the doubt down deep, where mothers keep the things we don't want to name. But doubt is stubborn. It grows in the dark. 2 weeks later, Mr. Hargrove's text came. I drove to his office that same afternoon, hands trembling on the steering wheel of my old Camry, the heater blowing lukewarm air that smelled faintly of the pine tree freshener Daniel had hung there years ago. His office was in the same brick building it had always been. Blinds half drawn. The faint scent of coffee and old paper greeting me as I stepped inside. Mr. Hargrove closed the door softly and motioned for me to sit. His eyes were kind but tired. He slid a folder across the desk. Daniel came to see me 10 days ago. Alone, said you'd sent him to discuss estate optimization. He used air quotes, the gesture heavy with meaning. He brought a new power of attorney form already notarized with only his name on it. He wanted me to witness a revised will that leaves the entire estate to him immediately upon your incapacity or passing. He said you have early dementia and can no longer manage your affairs. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair so hard my knuckles went white. Dementia. I'm 67, not 97. I walk 2 miles every morning. I still beat Sarah at Scrabble. There's more, Mr. Hargrove said quietly. He turned his computer monitor toward me. On the screen were emails, my email address, but not written in my words, sent to him and to my bank, authorizing Daniel to act as sole signatory. The language was formal, stilted, nothing like the way I write, and the send times 2:14 a.m., 3:07 a.m. hours when I'm fast asleep. I felt the blood drain from my face. He forged my signature. And your emails. He must have had access to your passwords. Mr. Hargrove's voice was steady, but I saw the anger flickering behind his glasses. Mrs. Ellis, if I had signed those documents. Within weeks he could have liquidated everything, house savings, retirement accounts, and you would have had no legal recourse. He told me you were on board and just needed things handled quickly before you forgot. Forgot. The word sliced through me. My own son painted me as a confused old woman to steal what his father and I had spent a lifetime building. I don't remember driving home. I only remember sitting in my driveway, engine running, staring at the porch light flickering the way it does when the bulb is about to go. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything soft and left only sharp edges. When I walked inside, the house smelled of the lavender sachets I keep in the drawers, same as always, but nothing felt the same. I went straight to my bedroom, pulled out the small fire safe from under the bed, the one Tom had insisted, and opened it with shaking fingers. My original will was still there, unchanged, thank God, but the spare key to the safe, gone. That evening Daniel called, cheerful as ever. Hey Mom, we're thinking of coming by tomorrow with pizza. Kids miss their grandma. I closed my eyes, pressed the phone hard against my ear, and heard the lie humming beneath every syllable. That sounds lovely, sweetheart, I said, my voice steady as Sunday china. I'll make that apple pie you like. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed. The quilt Tom's mother had made folded neatly at the foot, and I cried for the first time in years. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that soaked the collar of my blouse while the clock on the nightstand ticked on. Indifferent, but I'm my mother's daughter, and my mother raised me never to mistake kindness for weakness. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, I was back in Mr. Hargrove's office. This time, I brought my own folder. We need to protect you, Mr. Hargrove said, his pen tapping softly against the desk like a metronome counting down. First, we revoke any access he has. Change all passwords, bank pins, everything. Then, we file a report not to press charges yet, but to document the forgery. It'll freeze any attempts he makes. I nodded, though my mind was a whirlwind. Document the forgery. Against my own son. The words tasted like ash. But as he walked me through the steps, his voice calm and methodical, I felt a spark of resolve ignite. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust shattered, a legacy tainted. Tom had worked his fingers raw to provide for us, and I wouldn't let that be undone in the shadows. By noon, we'd drafted the necessary letters. I signed them with a steady hand, the ink gliding across the paper like a final boundary drawn. Mr. Hargrove promised to handle the submissions discreetly. Give me 24 hours, he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm, reassuring. As I left, the autumn wind nipped at my cheeks, carrying the scent of fallen leaves, crisp, almost cleansing. That afternoon, I went home and methodically changed every lock. The hardware store clerk didn't ask questions as I bought new deadbolts, the metal cool and heavy in my bag. Back in the house, I worked alone, the screwdriver biting into the wood with each turn. Splinters pricking my fingers like tiny accusations. Why hadn't I seen this coming? Daniel had always been ambitious, pushing for promotions, eyeing bigger homes, but this, greed wrapped in familial concern. When Daniel arrived that evening with Sarah and the kids, pizza boxes in hand, I was ready. The aroma of pepperoni filled the entryway as Emma rushed in, her small arms wrapping around my legs. Grandma, we brought extra cheese. Tommy trailed behind, shyly holding a stick figure, family under a rainbow sky. I smiled, though it felt brittle, and ushered them to the kitchen. Daniel set the boxes down, his eyes scanning the room casually. Smells good in here. You baked that pie. Sit down, everyone, I said, my voice even as I poured lemonade into glasses, the ice clinking softly. Sarah helped the kids settle, her movements quick, almost nervous. We ate in relative normalcy, chatter about school projects, the crunch of crust under teeth, but tension hummed beneath it all, like a wire pulled taut after the kids scampered off to play in the living room. I cleared my throat. Daniel, Sarah, we need to talk. Daniel leaned back, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Sure, Mom, what's on your mind? I placed the folder on the table, the one from Mr. Hargrove, copies of the forged documents inside. This, his face paled just a fraction, but he recovered quickly. What is that? You know what it is. The power of attorney. The emails from my account. The revised will claim I have dementia. Each word landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading across his expression. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. Daniel, what is she talking about? He shifted, avoiding her gaze. Mom, you're misunderstanding. I was just trying to help streamline things. You've been forgetting little stuff lately, like where you put your keys. Forgetting keys doesn't mean dementia, I said quietly, my heart aching at the lie. You forged my signature, accessed my emails without permission. I tried to transfer money. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. Mr. Hargrove must have mixed things up. Daniel, Sarah whispered, tears welling. Tell me this isn't true. He paced, running a hand through his hair, the same gesture he'd made as a boy when caught in a fib. Okay, fine. Things have been tight. The promotion fell through, and the house payments. We're drowning, Mom. I thought if I could just borrow against the estate early, get us stable, then pay it back. You always said family comes first. Borrow. The word exploded from me, though I kept my volume low, for the kids' sake. This isn't borrowing, it's stealing, painting me as incompetent to take control. What if I'd signed those papers unknowingly? You'd have sold the house out from under me. Sarah sobbed softly now, shaking her head. You said it was just advice from the accountant. You lied to me too. I did it for us. Daniel's voice cracked, desperation edging in. For the kids, better schools, a yard they can play in without worrying about the mortgage. Mom, you've got more than enough. Dad would have wanted. Don't bring your father into this. I cut in, my voice like steel, wrapped in velvet. Tom built this for security, not for you to gamble it away on secrets and lies. The confrontation hung in the air, thick as fog. Daniel slumped back into his chair, face buried in his hands. Sarah reached for him, then pulled back, uncertainty etched in her features. From the living room came the innocent giggles of Emma and Tommy, oblivious to the storm. I didn't yell, didn't throw them out. Instead, I said, you need to leave now. We'll talk more tomorrow, but tonight, I need space. They gathered the kids quietly, the door clicking shut behind them like the end of an era. Alone in the kitchen, amid half-eaten pizza slices growing cold, I felt the weight of it all pressed down. Betrayal wasn't just the act. It was the erosion of what I thought was unbreakable. But action breeds clarity. The next day, I met with a lawyer, not Mr. Hargrove, but a specialist in elder financial abuse. Her office smelled of fresh coffee and leather-bound books, a far cry from the chaos in my heart. We can pursue charges if you want, she said, reviewing the documents, her pen underlining key phrases. But often, in family cases, mediation works better. Freeze the assets first, then confront them with evidence. I chose mediation, not for Daniel's sake, but for the grandkids. I couldn't bear the thought of courtrooms tearing us further apart. We scheduled a session for the following week, neutral ground at her office. In the meantime, I investigated quietly. I called the bank, confirmed the access logs, multiple logins from Daniel's IP address. I even drove by their house one evening, seeing the for sale sign half hidden behind a bush. They were upgrading, all right, on borrowed time and my dime. My plan was simple: confront facts, demand accountability, no revenge, just restoration. I'd revise my will properly, trusts for the grandkids, managed independently. Daniel would get his share eventually, but not control, and therapy, family counseling, if he'd agree. Because beneath the hurt, I still saw the boy who'd hugged me through storms. The mediation day arrived sooner than I wanted. We sat around a polished table, the air conditioned and sterile, a far cry from our warm kitchen talks. The mediator, a woman named Ms. Patel, with a soft voice and eyes that missed nothing, started us off with ground rules. No interruptions. Speak from the heart. I sat across from Daniel and Sarah, the table between us like a chasm. The room smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant, a sterile contrast to the homey scents I associated with family. Mr. Hargrove was there too, at my side, his presence a quiet shield. Daniel looked worn, dark circles under his eyes. His usual confident posture slumped. Sarah held his hand, but loosely, as if unsure. The kids were with a sitter. This was for adults only. Ms. Patel nodded to me. Mrs. Ellis, would you like to begin? I unfolded the documents slowly, the paper rustling in the quiet. Daniel, I love you. That hasn't changed. But what you did, it broke something in me. Forging my name, lying about my health to gain control of everything Tom and I built. Why? He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Mom, I panicked. The job sales dried up after the market shift. We were 2 months behind on the mortgage. Sarah's school cut hours. I saw your accounts, and thought it was a loan from my family. Temporary. I convinced myself you'd understand, that it was for the greater good. Sarah pulled her hand away then, her voice trembling. You told me it was legal advice. That your mom agreed. I believed you because I love you. But this is theft, Daniel. He turned to her, desperation in his eyes. It was a mistake. I'd pay it back. Mom, please, no, I said firmly, though my heart twisted. Mistakes don't involve forgery and lies about dementia. You planned this for weeks. Accessed my emails at night. Tried to transfer funds without a word. Ms. Patel interjected gently. Daniel, your response. He rubbed his face, tears glistening. I was ashamed. Didn't want to admit we were failing. You always bailed me out as a kid, scraped knees, bad grades. I thought, family helps family. Family asks, I replied, my voice steady. Not steel in the dark. We went back and forth for hours. Mr. Hargrove laid out the evidence. IP logs, the notarized forms with my forged signature, a shaky imitation that didn't match my neat cursive. Daniel admitted it all eventually, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, Mom, I see now how wrong it was. Greed blinded me. By the end, we had an agreement. Daniel would repay the attempted transfer amount, $18.4, through a structured plan, garnished from his wages if needed. He'd attend financial counseling and therapy for his impulses. The power of attorney was nullified, my accounts locked down with new safeguards, and visitation with the grandkids supervised for now, until trust is rebuilt. As we stood to leave, Daniel approached me hesitantly. Mom, can I hug you? I paused, the ache in my chest raw. Then I opened my arms. He clung to me like the boy he once was, sobbing into my shoulder. I'll make this right, he whispered. Sarah hugged me too, her tears warm on my neck. Thank you for not destroying him. Us. Driving home. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft oranges. I felt drained but empowered, a quiet strength blooming where hurt had been. Word spreads in a small town like ours, especially when it involves the Ellis family. It started subtly. The bank manager called to confirm the freezes, mentioning how unusual the activity had been. Then Sarah confided in her sister, who told a friend at the school where she taught. By the next PTA meeting, whispers followed me in the grocery aisles. Did you hear about Daniel Ellis? Trying to swindle his own mother. I didn't fuel the fire. Dignity was my guide. But truth has a way of surfacing. The first real public ripple came at church on Sunday. Our pastor, Reverend Klein, pulled me aside after service, the scent of coffee and donuts wafting from the fellowship hall. Evelyn, I heard some troubling things. Is everything all right? I nodded, choosing my words carefully. Family matters, Reverend. We're working through it with professionals. He squeezed my hand. Prayer chains got you covered. By Monday, it was at the beauty salon. My stylist, Linda, clipped my hair with careful snips, the mirror reflecting my calm exterior. Honey, everyone's talking. Daniel's boss even asked if it affected his job. Said something about trustworthiness in sales. I met her eyes in the reflection. Actions have consequences. Linda. He's facing him. The community's judgment was swift but not cruel. Daniel's firm put him on probation. Client trust eroded after a colleague overheard the mediation details from a mutual friend. Sales dropped. Commissions halved. He had to sell the new car he'd been eyeing. Downsized dreams. Sarah took on extra tutoring gigs. Her face drawn but determined when I saw her at the park with the kids. Family gatherings shifted too. My sister Ruth called from out of state, her voice sharp over the line. "Evelyn, why didn't you tell me? That boy needs a wake-up call." I explained the mediation, the repayments. She softened. "You're too forgiving, but that's you, Grace, under fire." Even the grandkids sensed the change. Emma asked one afternoon, as we baked cookies, flour dusting the counter like snow, "Why can't Daddy come alone anymore?" I knelt to her level, wiping a smudge from her cheek. "Grown-ups make mistakes, sweetie. We're fixing them together." The hardest was the neighborhood barbecue a month later. Old friends approached with hesitant smiles. Heard Daniel hit a rough patch, Mr. Jenkins from next door said. Flipping burgers on the grill, smoke curling up with the scent of charcoal. "Anything we can do?" "Just support," I replied. "He's learning." Daniel faced it head-on. He apologized publicly at a family dinner I hosted, inviting Ruth and a few cousins. The table groaned under fried chicken and cornbread, but the air was thick with unspoken words. "I let greed take over," he said, standing, his voice steady despite the tremor. "I hurt the person who loved me most. I'm repaying every cent, attending counseling. I ask for your forgiveness, not excuses." Tears flowed, then Sarah's quiet ones, Ruth's gruff nod. No one cheered, but heads bowed in acknowledgement. Justice wasn't punishment, it was accountability, rippling out to restore balance. In the weeks that followed, the community's gaze softened. People saw Daniel working double shifts, coaching Little League to make amends. Whispers turned to words of encouragement. "He's turning it around." It wasn't vindication for me, but a lesson lived out loud. Betrayal's cost, and the path back through humility. Healing doesn't come in a rush. It seeps in slowly, like rain soaking parched earth. In the months after the mediation, I focused on rebuilding, not just the safeguards around my finances, but the fragile threads of our family. I started with small steps, the kind that ground you in the everyday. Mornings found me in the garden again, knees in the soil, the cool dirt crumbling between my fingers as I planted bulbs for spring. Tulips, Tom's favorite tread ones that would bloom like promises kept. Daniel began his repayments promptly, a check arriving each month in a plain envelope, his handwriting neat on the memo line. Installment 1 of 24. I deposited them without fanfare, watching the balance restore itself digit by digit on my bank app. But money was the easy part. The real work was in the therapy sessions we attended together, family counseling at a quiet office downtown, where the therapist, Dr. Mills, sat in a worn armchair, her voice gentle as she guided us through the wreckage. Our first session was tense. Daniel sat rigid on the couch, Sarah beside him twisting a tissue in her lap. I chose the chair by the window, sunlight filtering through blinds in slanted lines. "Evelyn," Dr. Mills began, "what do you need from this?" I thought for a moment, the faint tick of a wall clock marking the silence. "Understanding," I said finally. "Why did my son feel he couldn't come to me honestly?" Daniel shifted, his eyes on the floor. "I was scared, Mom. Scared of disappointing you. You've always been so strong after Dad, raising me alone. I didn't want to be the weak one." "Weakness isn't asking for help," I replied softly. "It's hiding behind lies." Over weeks, layers peeled back. Daniel shared about pressures at work, the fear of failing as a provider, echoing Tom's own stresses before his heart gave out. Sarah opened up about her resentment, feeling sidelined in his decisions. "I love him," she said one session, tears streaking her cheeks. "But trust is everything." I shared too my loneliness after retirement, how handing over finances had been a way to stay connected, not a sign of frailty. Dr. Mills nodded, jotting notes. "Betrayal wounds deep because it's personal. Healing starts with vulnerability." Between sessions, we rebuilt routines. Supervised visits became unsupervised as Daniel proved consistent, showing up for the kids' soccer games, his cheers mingling with mine from the sidelines, the crisp autumn air carrying the scent of cut grass. One evening, he helped me fix a leaky faucet, tools clinking in the toolbox Tom had left behind. "I miss Dad," he said suddenly, wrench in hand. "He'd have kicked my butt for this." I smiled faintly. "He'd have forgiven you too." Eventually, Sarah and I grew closer in unexpected ways. She'd drop by with coffee, the steam rising like a peace offering as we sat on the porch. "I should have seen the signs," she confessed once, rocking gently in the swing. chains creaking softly. He was stressed, but I didn't push. We all missed things, I said, patting her hand. What matters is now. The grandkids were my bomb. Emma and Tommy brought light drawing pictures at my kitchen table, crayons scattering like confetti, the waxy smell filling the air. Grandma, are you mad at Daddy? Tommy asked one day, his small face serious. A little, I admitted honestly, stirring batter for pancakes. But love is bigger than mad, we're fixing it. As winter settled in, snow blanketing the yard like a fresh start, Daniel's changes became evident. He switched jobs to a steadier one at a local warehouse. Less glamour, more reliability, no more chasing commissions. He told me over dinner one night, passing the mashed potatoes, steam curling up, stability first. I revised my will properly, with Mr. Hargrove's oversight. Trusts for Emma and Tommy, managed by an independent executor. Daniel's inheritance intact but delayed until my passing, with clauses for ethical management. It's not punishment, I explained to him as we reviewed it together. It's protection for all of us. He nodded, no argument this time. I get it, Mom. I earned the caution. Forgiveness crept in quietly. It wasn't a grand declaration but a series of moments. Daniel calling just to check in, his voice warm without agenda. Sarah inviting me to Emma's school play, where we sat shoulder to shoulder, applauding as she took her bow. Family holidays where laughter flowed freer, the scent of roasting turkey mingling with pine from the tree. One spring day, as the tulips pushed through the earth in vibrant reds, Daniel and I walked the garden path. The air was sweet with bloom, bees humming lazily. I'm proud of you, I said, linking my arm to his. Not for what happened, but for facing it. He stopped, turning to me with eyes that held a man's regret and a boy's hope. I love you, Mom. Thank you for giving me a chance to make it right. We hugged there amid the flowers, his embrace strong and sincere, the kind that mends cracks. It wasn't perfect, scars remain, reminders of fragility, but it was whole again, in its way. Life moved forward. I joined a book club at the library, pages turning under my fingers as new friends shared stories over tea. I volunteered at the community center, helping seniors with their own financial literacy. Ironic, perhaps, but empowering. Learn from my lessons, I'd say, voice calm as I handed out pamphlets. The rustle of paper, a small victory. Daniel's family stabilized too. They sold the bigger house dream, opting for modest renovations instead. Sarah got a full-time position, her confidence blooming. The kids thrived. Their drawings now, including all of us, under one big sun. In quiet evenings, I'd sit in Tom's old recliner, the leather worn soft, and reflect. Betrayal had tested us, but it also revealed strengths: my resilience, Daniel's capacity for change. Family isn't unbreakable, it's rebuildable, piece by careful piece. As the seasons turned, peace settled like a well-earned rest. I watched sunsets from the porch, colors bleeding across the sky, and felt gratitude for the journey. Not pity for the pain, but wisdom from the walk through it. I still have that first repayment envelope tucked in my Bible, right at the verse that says, "Love keeps no record of wrongs." Some days I take it out and run my fingers over Daniel's careful handwriting. It isn't there to remind me of the hurt. It's there to remind me of the miracle that came after it. A son who chose humility over pride. A daughter-in-law who chose truth over comfort. And a mother who chose love over bitterness. Family is not the absence of wounds. It is the presence of healing in spite of them. I learned that greed can wear the face of the person you rocked to sleep. And forgiveness can still be offered without forgetting. I learned that protecting yourself is not the same as punishing someone else. And that second chances are not weakness. They are the bravest things a heart can give. So here I am, 70 now, sitting on the same porch where I once cried into my blouse, watching those red tulips come back year after year. Daniel and the kids will be here soon for Sunday supper. The table will be loud. The kitchen will smell of roast chicken and laughter. And somewhere beneath it all will be the quiet knowledge that we survived the darkest chapter because we refused to let it write the ending. Tell me, dear one, if the child you carried, the one you would have laid down your life for, ever looked you in the eye and tried to take what wasn't theirs yet, could you find the strength to protect yourself and still leave the door open for them to come home? I did, and I have never once regretted it. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember that love can be fierce and gentle at the same time. And if you're walking through your own family storm right now, hold on. The rain passes, the roots hold, and sometimes the strongest trees are the ones that have been broken and learned how to grow around the scar. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. I'll see you in the next one.